soon?
We're gonna go soon, but
Okay.
I'm like, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
awful. It's just
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah. It's really tough.
We can talk about that, like the personal, like how this affects people who work
Mhm.
with farmers.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome to Food Talk Live. A reminder that this episode will also appear on our podcast, Food Talk with Danny Nierenberg. So please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Today I get to talk to somebody I really admire and I really, really admire and rarely get to see. And that's Kathleen Finlay, the president of the Glynwood Center for Regional Food and Farming. She started there in 2012, and under her leadership, Glynwood has become a premier learning hub for food and farming professionals. And I love that they call them food and farming professionals, that they are professionals. Farmers are professionals. And I think that's such a great point. Previously, she worked as the director of Harvard's Center for Health and the Global Environment, and she's a crusader for advancing women's leadership in food and agriculture. She's basically a rock star to me, and I'm so glad she could join us today. Thanks for being here. Before we start, I just really want to make sure that you and your family and all of your loved ones are doing okay. Like, this is such a crazy time.
Yeah. Crazy time. You too. Um, and it's a pleasure to talk with you as always. I wish it were under brighter circumstances. Yeah, personally, so far, so good in terms of health, and everyone's just hunkering down and doing our part to keep others safe and keep our loved ones safe.
It's
So
great. It's
yeah,
great.
hard to hear some of the stories getting a little closer, especially in New York in our circle. But kids and lovers are okay right now.
I'm so glad. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
So I kind of want you to break down, if you can, how this, COVID-19, how this crisis is really impacting farmers in the Hudson Valley where you live and work, and really, small farmers all over the nation. What are the biggest things that you're worried about for farmers right now?
Certainly aside from just health and protocol and having to pivot and think about how to do one's work safely and keep others safe is a primary on everybody's mind,
Sure.
because farming is essential and we need an awesome regional food supply.
Right.
Farmers are still working and they're still getting food to people, which also puts them at high risk in some ways. So getting those protocols out there and getting everyone on the same page about how to do that safely has been part of the work that we've done here at Glynwood, and part of the facilitation that we've helped steward throughout the farmers in the Hudson Valley that we work with. And I mean, farmers are a resilient bunch, as you know.
Yeah.
They're used to lots of unknowns. This is incredibly bizarre and uncharted territory. Spirit that can do spirit, I'm seeing a lot everywhere, and just in abundance. And
Absolutely.
like, how do we do this? How do we, just like up for it? So yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of challenges. I think there's positivity in that the demand for local and regional food from individuals is really high. So while there's a complete drop in wholesale in terms of retail and restaurants, that some of our farmers, different farms have different models, so they're
Absolutely.
affected differently. But the direct sales channels are seeing more demand than they ever have, frankly.
Yeah,
So that's been
such an
interesting.
Yeah, it's really been really interesting to watch. I just want to go back for a minute to sort of the health component of this, and according to the latest agricultural census, we have an older population of people who are farming. Most of them are or over 60, despite the growth in the young farmers movement. I mean, that makes them especially vulnerable to this because of their age. And I mean, I don't even know if I can pose this as a question. It's just like I have a real concern that we're going to lose a really knowledgeable group of farmers who have done so much for the Hudson Valley, who've done so much, across the country. It saddens me, but they're putting their lives on the risk by, bringing food to folks. And so I don't know if you can even respond to that, but it's something that worries me as we go through this.
Yeah, one of the things we've been doing, we've been working with the local chapter of the National Young Farmers Coalition and organizing these weekly calls. And there's lots of reasons we're doing that, but one of the things and there's a lot of beauty coming out of those interactions that I'm witnessing and observing. But one of it is figuring out how to work together so that if there are farmers at risk, they're not the one going to market, and they're working with neighboring farms, and they're the ones that are doing the runs to the city or doing, staffing the pickups. So there's some cooperation that's happening in the very tight community of regenerative, sustainable farmers in the Hudson Valley. So I'm not that in touch with what's happening on the larger conventional farms in the Midwest, for example.
Sure.
I think in the communities outside of New York, those are also really tight in terms of the small scale farmers working together and protecting, those farmers at risk. One of our head farmers is a little bit older. She's awesome. She's incredibly wise and has a ton to teach our new generation, our new farmers that we train here at Glynwood. And we're just making sure she's being really safe. She's on the farm and she's at home. And most of our farmers here at Glynwood are living on site. Actually, all of them are.
That's fantastic.
So we're able to do that. Yeah.
As these stay, at home or, shelter at home recommendations stay in place, what do you think, in the Hudson Valley, is that going to have a big impact on both planting and harvesting over the next several months or however long this lasts?
Yeah, I think that farmers are really working with each other and working with resources like Glynwood to make sure that production levels stay as close to normal as possible. So, we were really quick to put out protocols for farmers on how to work safely and still be able to social distance on your farm. And I think everyone is trying to prioritize the level of production. I think distribution is like changing daily. Yeah. How do we get that food either to market or to people, or what are some other options for making up for the wholesale accounts? CSAs across the country are selling out. Ours sold out in record time. Farmers markets are dealing with more customers than they've ever seen. So just what we're trying to do is help farmers meet those production levels as much as they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know part of your mission is really to mobilize information and really, provide advocacy. How are you doing that online? You mentioned the calls with the National Young Farmers Coalition, but having to do all of these Zoom calls and everything else, how are you getting the information that farmers need and want and have to have out? How are you getting it to them at this time?
Yeah, a lot of Zoom. But also a lot of phone calls and emails and all the other methods that we always use. And I mean, these calls have been really great. Putting resources, there's now websites that are acting as resources for farmers to be able to come and get information about, loan opportunities that might be available for them to help financially. Protocols, those are all just a lot of sharing. And we started a coalition of farmers that use CSA as their main distribution channel, Hudson Valley CSA Coalition. So that's been one of our primary ways to reach, 100 farmers in the Hudson Valley in one go. They're all connected. So getting in touch with the farmers hasn't been that challenging. We also launched. We're creating these directories for folks to they kind of self-create, fill out Google forms so that if they need help on their farm, or if unfortunately someone gets sick and they need to share resources, there's a quick phone tree they can call.
That's amazing. I love that we're
it's like
going
an emergency
backward
response.
It's so great. Like, going forward by going back and looking at those ways people used to communicate.
Yeah. And like I said, the community is really tight, so we can get information out there pretty quickly. And it's just been so heartening to see the level of cooperation. Like I said, we have some chefs that we worked with. The culinary community, as you know, has been just so hit by this crisis. God. And some of our friends are, turned their kitchen into meal prep hubs that are feeding out of work restaurant workers. We're donating a lot of food to that. We're donating food to those efforts. And some of those folks that aren't working right now are drivers for the farmers that we work with, are drivers for us to get the food donations to where they need to go. So everyone's kind of chipping in. What can we do? And there's just a natural sort of way to check in and plug in.
Well, Kathleen, I want to tell you something. I've been doing these live casts, these podcasts about COVID-19 for more than 3 weeks now. And you have been one of the most, sort of upbeat people. I just want to repeat some of the words that you spoke about. You used the word awesome, which I'm a big fan of the word awesome. You said beauty. You said sharing. You said cooperation. You said heartening. I mean, this is making, I'm a little bit emotional about it because I'm not hearing a lot of that right now. And so it's nice to know that you're looking at this as a way for folks to share information, for folks to help one another, sort of, again, going forward by going back. Farming communities in the United States, they still do, but they've sort of been polarized between big and small, but knowing that these farmers are helping one another, that they're, you're helping them create phone trees, that people are going, to market for someone else to sell, her crops or his crops. That's really amazing. I mean, it must be really, you're getting a lot of satisfaction from this, I imagine, from living and being in that environment.
Yeah, it's an amazing antidote to the reality of the situation. And I do think that with anything like this, this is on a level that one couldn't have possibly imagined, but there's going to be lessons and transformations. I have a friend that's even more positive than me who calls it a juicy time. This is a really juicy time.
I love that.
I love it too. I mean, it's hard for me to get quite there, but she just really thinks there's going to be some pretty large scale lessons learned, and certainly in the, having been at this work for a long time, trying to convince people that eating food grown thoughtfully by people who care about the land and care about their communities is healthier for us and healthier for the planet, and that this kind of wake up call to that reality is interesting, and people understanding how secure that food supply could be if on a regional scale rather than sort of a very homogenized industrial scale. So that there's, I think there are the amount of people that are, the amount of cooking people are doing, I think is also interesting. And I'm hearing a lot of stories about people connecting with nature. So those are some positive things, but it's a hard time for sure. Yeah.
Thanks for bearing with us through the technical difficulties.
It's okay.
We'll get Kathleen back on as soon as we can. Hi, sorry, we must have had some technical difficulties.
It's okay.
I don't know if you can hear me, Kathleen.
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay.
Sorry, I knew you were talking about some inspiring things that were happening, and I apologize for the tech difficulties.
No problem.
This is the time we were in, but One of the things that I wanted to ask, you about, you were talking about lessons and how this is a juicy time for transformation. I think, and you might have already said this, that there's a greater appreciation now for local and regional food systems that are, not only supporting local economies, but are supporting the land, that are regenerative in really every sense of the word. Do you see coming out of this? I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, as I said before, and they said that we will not be going back to the way things were. We cannot go back to business as usual. That would be a mistake. Is that something you agree with them
Yeah,
about?
I mean, that's something I hope for. In my most optimistic self, would hope that we learn that there's wide scale adoption of healthier ways of being on the planet, and having a robust regional food system is certainly something I've been working on for a long time, and others have as well. So I hope, I hold that as a hope that more people will understand how much healthier, how much more humane, how much more connected that is to get food that's thoughtfully grown on a regional scale.
So how can we make that hope, your hope, and so many other people's hope a reality? Like, starting now while the crisis is still going on, but certainly post crisis, whenever that is. How do we make, the policy environment, amenable to investing in regional and local food systems?
I mean, I think there's so many ways. One is just to advocate for you and your network and your influencers to patronize a local farm. Like we were talking about before, they're up and running. They're ready for you. The season's going to be great. Buy your CSA. Hudson Valley
Quick.
CSA is do it quick, is a great place to go if you're in New York. But there's other places to find CSAs. That's one of the healthiest ways you can feed your family, actually, and it's pretty affordable. It's comparable to a grocery store. So just doing it is one, and talking about it and sharing that experience with your circle. Certainly advocating for policy. It would be wonderful if we had some enlightenment in terms of food policy on every level: local, county, state, national. So that can take many forms. I find it's really great when people kind of find what they're most passionate about within healthy food and farming, and kind of advocate for that topic, whether it's getting junk food out of schools, or whether it's making federal dollars accessible to SNAP recipients to use for local food. And that's the other big thing we're seeing is we've decided to donate far more of our farm's products to families in need, because there's so many families in need with this economic crisis. And so we have a local.
Everyone, the Hudson Valley has often not a great connection, and my connection is not great today, so we'll just wait for Kathleen to come back.
Should we just, I don't know when you come back.
All of these technical difficulties. So Kathleen, can you go ahead and repeat what you were saying before about
Sure.
like a national food policy and getting people passionate about what they're most interested in?
Yeah. So I think advocating for one topic that they're passionate about, and advocating for that on any level of policy, local, state, national. The other thing I was talking about is we've seen a lot of folks want to help in some way. And that is taking some different forms, but one of the ways people can help right now and plug in is to um, donate to efforts that are buying food from farms like the ones we work with that care a lot about their community. And then that goes to families in need because there's so many more families in need because of the economic aspects of this crisis.
Absolutely.
So we're doubling the food we donate to our local food pantries and to kitchens that I was talking about before. And then we're coordinating some region-wide efforts to coordinate, a larger pool of getting food to those who need it from farms who also need to be supported right now. So
Absolutely.
it's a way to give to both of those efforts, to families who need healthy food and for those who grow it and produce it.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. It's sort of it's one of those win-wins. So you're not only helping the farmer, but you're helping people who are in need, and that's what's most needed at this time. Um, you've said that, you know, policy people should get passionate about what, they're most interested in. One of the things that has bothered me consistently before this crisis is that people are, whether they're policymakers on the Hill or just a lot of regular folks, haven't thought about food unless, they hear about the, SNAP on the news, or legislators are thinking about the Farm Bill. How do you think this crisis will impact how we all think about food differently from now on, and how we think about farmers and food workers and everyone sort of in the whole food supply chain?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there's going to be more awareness about the supply chain and where food comes from, and I do think the supply chain of food isn't totally threatened right at this particular moment, even the
Right.
conventional food supply system.
Right.
But it's like the first thing people worry about, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
how do I feed myself and I feed my family? So, as much as we can advocate for regional food production that is respectful to the environment and really prioritizes human health, I think that there's an opening to have those conversations in a more robust way than we have than they've been paid attention to in the past.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I know our reps here in the Hudson Valley, I've been in touch with them throughout this crisis, our congressional representatives. They're pretty progressive anyway, but they are cognizant that food is a fundamental need that we have, and in a
Yeah.
crisis like this, we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help those farmers. And there's some assistance that's coming down the pike for farmers, but not enough, in my view. I mean, I would say that normally, like
Yeah.
that we need to support the kind of farming that we promote here at Glynwood, with real federal funds. So just having those conversations and making your representatives aware of those issues, I think is really important, perhaps more important now than ever.
Absolutely. And I think, this idea of what you mentioned before of connecting food to other things, connecting it to health. A lot of people don't make that connection, and connecting it to the economy and the health of rural communities and urban ones as well. So there's a lot of connections and a lot of breaking down silos that I at least feel is happening right now, because people are really focused. People who weren't focused on food before weren't that worried about it because they had a 24-hour supermarket, or they could go through,
Yeah.
to whatever restaurant. They're worried about it now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's incredibly interesting. And like I said, people are cooking, there's a lot
Right.
of cooking, and people are connecting through food and through recipes. I've gotten like 20 recipe chain mail
That's
things
great.
recently. And, so I think that there is, we're home, we're doing what we can. And that act of feeding oneself is more thoughtful right now.
Yeah.
So it's a
Actual
good time to
nourishment.
think about it. Yeah.
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 I talked to Karen Washington yesterday, and she was saying the same thing about, this cooking and the idea of sharing with your neighbors, things that, might pass us by, pre-COVID we're thinking about again, like helping out the folks in your community and just being more sort of proactive about connecting with people, even if you can't get close to them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the first week that we were quarantined, we changed to a delivery model for our meat CSA and orders, and it was just such a pleasure to give food to people and know that the food was beautiful and raised with love. And I mean, it was just such a wonderful act. And I'm cooking here for our little community at Glynwood. I'm cooking most weekends
That's great.
just to share, and even if it's left on your doorstep, we can't break bread together right now. It's still connecting through that wonderful act of culture and earth and
Right.
all of things. Yeah.
I was way too excited to see the woman who dropped off my CSA package yesterday. Because I'm like, oh, yay, you're here. And she's all suited up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hi, someone else to talk to besides my poor husband. But yeah, no, it is this connection over food. And it was, it's nice. It's really wonderful. You've been so inspiring throughout this, but I'm wondering before we end, I've been asking most folks who've been on the show, who's inspiring you the most right now? Or is there an organization that's inspiring you the most?
Wow. It's a stiff competition, actually. Sure. I'm watching, I get to see in real life my farmers. So I actually get to observe them on the farm and help out on the farm. And I think they're my heroes and sheroes right now. They're working really, really hard and pivoting really quickly. And we have an apprentice program here at Glynwood where new entry farmers come and spend about a year learning and working and living here. We've had to stagger their entrance and quarantine them and then add them. So it's been and get to know each other over Zoom. It's like completely different experience. And they're so great. And just even amidst this crisis, they are more dedicated than ever to answering this calling to be a farmer and work in the fields. And so they've just their dedication, their resilience, their attitude, their drive, it's not dissimilar to what I'm seeing in the healthcare sector, with a lot of my friends from that world just really showing up and doing amazing work for other humans. That's what farmers are doing.
Absolutely, and being on the front lines, literally, yeah. Those are the most inspiring folks in the world, farmers and healthcare workers. I'm totally inspired. Yeah, before we get cut off again, I want to make sure people know how to get more information. It's glynwood.org. Are there any other websites you want to give out where people can donate to folks in the Hudson Valley? Any other URLs?
Yeah, you could start there. There's a food assistance fund on our site. We're putting up resources every day for other things. So yeah, glynwood.org is great. And if you need a CSA, HudsonValleyCSA.org is also really good to find a CSA near you in New York. And I think there's links to other parts of the country as well.
Amazing. So again, glynwood.org. Kathleen, thank you for inspiring me. This week has been a little bit of a downer, so I needed to end it with somebody who I know would be inspiring. So thank you. A reminder that this episode will also appear on our podcast, Food Talk with Dani Nierenberg. And I hope you'll join me again on interviewing former Secretary of Agriculture Dan Glickman. Thank you, everyone. Great. Kathleen, stay well, please.
You too, Dani. Thanks. You too. Likewise. Keep doing the great work. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.